Hey everybody, it's Tim Lockie here, and you're going to notice that today I am not joined by my stalwart companion, Sami Zoss, who is out at the moment at a camp, but we are wishing her well. Hope that she is having a great time. And today is Ask Me Anything with Tim Lockie. So I'm so excited for this session because I get all of these questions and I answer them as they come up. But today, I'm so excited to just be able to take this time over the next 30 to 40 minutes to just answer questions that are coming up. So here's how we're going to do this. I've got some that are loaded up with questions, and then there are already questions in the chat. However, okay, so this is this is kind of annoying, but I can't put those questions in here just by showing them unless they're after the live feed has started. So I'm going to be copying and pasting some questions in to get started, and we've got some great ones loaded already, starting with one by Alexis Banks. So give me just a second to copy that over. I want to make sure that you can see it. And thanks for joining. I'm so excited to always see people who are hopping in and asking questions, joining, commenting. So thank you so much for that. Glad that you can make it here, Karen. Lori, so excited that you're on. Thanks for joining. And all right, Lori, because you've got a question right here, I am going to add that right here. And you'll be our first question. So thanks for hopping in. And let me just pop this up. So I'm going to take this off if I can. No, that's the opposite of the thing I wanted to do. Give me just 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right. All right. So first question from Lori Munoz. Lori, so great to have you asking a question. Here it is right here. So can AI analyze past partnerships to uncover patterns of success that organizations can replicate? Okay, yeah, this is such a great question. There are actually multiple ways that you can do this. So the overwhelming answer is yes. There are going to be a couple conditions that you'll need for this to work. But overall, yes, it can do that, and it can do that really effectively. It can also probably do that better than average humans, even humans that have been working in a sector for a long time. So in order to analyze past partnerships and to uncover patterns, you have to have those past partnerships in a data format that can be understood. However, here's the cheat code. That doesn't have to be in the same structured database spreadsheet version of data that it used to require. So, you used to have to be able to get everything into a structured data set, then submit that data set, run analysis on it that way. Now, if you just kind of create a folder and you just put all the emails in there, you put all of the outcomes from those partnerships, you put, if you can connect, and sometimes you can, your CRM to that partnership, or if you export those partners out through your CRM and all of the adjoining fields, the more context and data that you can give it, even in an unstructured way, the better that analysis can be. And one of the big cheat codes on this is if you have data about how you onboarded that partner, how that partner came to be, and you have outcomes from that partnership. So here is, what the value of that partnership was tangibly. Here's the value of the partnership, on the intangibles. You throw all of that in and you run deep research, you'll be able to start unlocking patterns. And at the end, if you say to the deep research project, how can I collect data to improve the analysis of this in the future? Then it'll give you some of the ways that you could start tailoring the way that you're doing these partnerships so that you can collect the kind of data that would be effective for evaluation. So when you run a deep research project, if you haven't done that before, Gemini can do it, ChatGPT can do it, uh, Claude can do it. So all you do, you have to have a paid account. So first of all, just you need paid accounts. And you just put everything into a folder or project or a gem or a NotebookLM, and then you run deep research on that. So, and running deep research, I usually just put a first prompt in that says something like, I need to run deep research. I'm asking these questions. Here's the data set that I've got. Or here's a folder full of all sorts of random files, or you just upload all those files. I think usually there's a 20 file limit to that. Throw all that stuff in there and then say, recommend a research prompt, and it'll start to give you some ideas. And then you can kind of push that where you want. Cheat code, when you're done with that project, grab all of those files and that deep research project, throw it in another deep research project, and then take it further, right? So that's, I hope that that's helpful. Thank you for that great question. Really love that question there. Okay, we've got other questions here. One from Alexis Banks. Alexis said, how are organizations keeping humans in the loop with AI? What strategies are organizations using to ensure the ethical and responsible use of AI and to verify that the outputs are ethical, equitable, effective, and accurate? Wow, that is a juicy question. Really like that. I'm going to throw that in the comment here so I can put it up live. But this question is from Alexis. So let me just do that real quick. Add that comment. Did that work? I think it worked. Okay, good. All right, so it's going to look like it's from me, but it's actually from Alexis Banks. Okay, this is kind of a two-part question. First, how are organizations keeping humans in the loop with AI? Right now, I think most organizations are using tools that require humans in the loop. So I think that's the main answer right now, is that it would be an advancement of AI if we could get to places where not having humans in the loop is happening through either automations or agents, which is not to say that this isn't a valid question. It absolutely is. I just want to say right now there's so much copying and pasting from context to place to GPTs and all of that, that humans are deeply involved in the work. And I think that's a good thing. So for the moment, I think humans are involved in the loop at the ground level. That said, when you're asking what strategies are organizations using to ensure the ethical and responsible use of AI, okay, that I think the main thing organizations are doing to ensure the ethical and responsible use of AI is to put the brakes on using AI. If I'm being totally honest about how that's going down right now, I think what's happening is that leaders are so worried about not using it ethically and responsibly that they're actually slowing down the adoption of AI. So this is kind of one of those spectrum questions, right? Where some people are charging off ahead and not thinking about this question enough, and others are thinking about it so much that they're not charging ahead at all. If I could just like give each group a little bit of the other, we could meet in the middle. That'd probably be the best option there. So let's speak to. So I just answered for the group that's maybe not charging fast enough. And one of the ways to understand this is that the most ethical or the most responsible use of AI right now is probably to just use the tools that you're paying for. So either Copilot or Gemini, and upskill all your staff so that they know what to do, because that's in line. You're not introducing any new risk. You're just using what you're already paying for, and you're not introducing any new risk because you're already in either the Microsoft cloud or the Google cloud. So there's not really any new risk. And to create really clear boundaries about where staff can use it, right? So we need to think centered set or guidelines, like if you are using it in this area, it's fine to use it. Even with the data that we're putting, any data that we're putting into the cloud, we can use in Gemini. That's different than we can post it on the web or anything like that, but we can use it internally. So I would say that about responsible use. They should view, I think leaders should view that as the most responsible use. Using AI that they're already paying for that introduces no new risk. The ethical use of it, and then especially when you get into the very, very, very tricky waters of bias and all of that. I've got one, the one answer I can say on that, because it's a huge can of worms, and it's not the can of worms I'm in all the time, is that they should go to Mina Dawes and they should follow Mina Dawes on all the work that Mina's doing around these questions, because Mina breaks it down into the most practical version of it that I've seen. I think that there's a tendency to talk about ethical use of AI and data bias in a way that's so abstract, it's hard to know what to do with it. Really important conversation. We should have them, but we need that to touch down someplace. And so Mina Dawes has the best questions and answers on that. She just posted on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago or days ago. I can't remember because they feel the same, but something that was, if you're wondering about this element of ethical use, ask these questions. And it was phenomenal. So my answer is Mina Dawes. Also, Feedback Labs. Alexis, I know that you're with Feedback Labs. But Feedback Labs is asking this question at large in ways that are really helpful around philanthropy. So follow Feedback Labs as well. Watch their work. Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. Next up, Leah Crawl. So Leah, thanks so much for asking this. I'm gonna pop this into the chat again. So give me just 1 second to do that. All right. And I'll show that question here. All right, now I've lost the question. Okay. I use AI daily and find it incredibly helpful. However, I recently met a social impact professional working in Uganda. Very cool. Megan Walsh, I'm sure your ears are perking up. He said young people are using AI in schools, but that the information can be outdated and that it isn't culturally relevant to a Ugandan context. Would you have thoughts on this or possible solutions? Okay, so we're going to run into resourcing questions here in a big way. So first of all, I'm super excited that this technology is globally available and that people are using it globally. And I say that because even if the answers aren't perfect, the availability of using this text this tool in the world at large is actually pretty helpful. It's not perfect, but it's available. And that for someone that has been looking at global connectivity and uh, and grassroots use of technology, like this is hitting different levels. This is the first easy button tech has ever made. So on the one hand, I want to say, Leah, this is great that this tech is so available to people. On the other hand, yes, the information is going to be outdated. And like all things, the you get what you pay for. And when it comes to intelligence, one of the things that you're paying for as you're paying more money for better models is that the models are trained with more data freshness, more recency, they're more up to date. I'm reminded of this because my mom, who is running a coffee shop out of Bozeman, Montana, and now my brother's running it, and she checked on the coffee pot on ChatGPT, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. And she was like, ChatGPT doesn't work because, it still says that dad and I are the owners of the coffee pot. And I said, Mom, are you using the free version of ChatGPT? And she said, of course, as if there would be another version that she would use, which I love. And I said, okay, let me check it out. And when I checked it out on my paid version of ChatGPT, it was all up to date. And I think that's a good example of what's happening there. So the research in question I'm referencing here is that the free versions of these tools are probably they're going to have data latency. And I think that that's one of the realities of it. The or the Ugandan context and cultural relevancy. That is a huge can of worms. I don't know how we fix. I don't know if we can fix it, because these tools, these large language models, were trained on the available information, available data, and the most easily accessible data was people who have been writing on the internet for a long time, which is coming from the global west and north. And so there is a massive bias in the data that is not going to be easily fixed. Not because, I mean, just because it's literally going to be hard to get a balance of that kind of data. And so I think that these are questions we really need to ask. We need to point them out. I don't know how we solve them. Okay, great question. Thank you so much for asking. Next question up, and thank you so much for joining. This is great. I'm really excited to see so many of you here. Dan Kershaw, as always, thank you so much for hopping in and running the back show and commenting. So really appreciate that. Okay, next question up is from Karen Cooks. Karen, thanks so much for joining the show. I love that you're here so often. Really excited about this. Okay, your question here, I'm going to drop it in the chat for everybody to see. Your question here is, just typing it in. Okay, great. How do we get buy-in? Oh, let me throw this up. Okay, this is a meaty question here. I like this. Okay. How do we get buy-in from nonprofit management to openly use AI? We need it to be integrated literally and psychologically. Oh my gosh, this question is awesome. And psychologically into a full stack of tools like Teams, Outlook, and all the other daily tools, with the exception of DSAI. I'm curious what DSAI is. I think it's a data and science AI tool, if I'm right. If anybody knows, throw that in there. DSAI, we're secretly using on our own because no is part of the culture. The psychological hurdles are an extreme sport. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, Karen, I'm so glad that you're listening in while I'm thinking about your very, very good question here. How do we get buy-in from nonprofit management to openly use AI? Bottom line, I think that there is a core message that has been missed that we need to just start broadcasting, which is you're already paying for it, and there's no new risk if you use the tools that are your business apps, right? So you're already paying for either, in your case, it looks like, because you're talking about Teams and Outlook, that's the Microsoft environment. You're already paying for Copilot. It might not be the best tool out there. It might not be the best writer out there. I think that like Copilot does not get a lot of love. That doesn't matter. I hopped into Copilot to just see, can it do the basics? And it can. Can it translate a document? Yes. Can it analyze a document? Yes. Can you convert like some text into a table? Yes. Can you actually talk to it on mobile? Yes. It's not great, but you can do it. So I think that there's a tendency for those of us that know a lot about AI and have been working it for a couple of years now to get hoity-toity about the quality of the tools. And frankly, we just need to start looking at this as we should just upskill everybody on AI basics in the tool that they're already paying for, and there's no new risk because you've already put all your data into their cloud. So whatever happens to that data, you're not incurring new risk to use that in that LLM. So I think that is actually the best way to do it, is to say no new expense and no new risk. We can do this quickly and it doesn't have to be perfect. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing is you were talking about we needed to be integrated literally and psychologically and into the full tech or the full stack of tools like Teams, Outlook, etc. That's the other reason to focus on the tools that are meant for AI at work, right? Which is totally different than like just personal use of AI. AI at work, yeah, you want it to be integrated into those tools. And so again, Copilot and Gemini are going to be the best ways to do that because they're building those integrations into those tools. And I have not spent a lot of time in Copilot, so I don't know what those tools are like, but I've been seeing the way that Gemini is building them, and they're starting to do that rapidly. So completely agree with you. And then psychological safety. I think leaders need to feel psychologically safe to give permission. And right now, I don't think they do. And I think that there's more that trainers like me need to do, focusing on AI enablement of organizations rather than just AI empowerment for everybody. Because what we're doing is we're starting to empower people without the permission for them to use that. And I think that we need to respect the boundaries that leaders are creating in their organizations. I might not agree with those boundaries, but I think that those leaders are looking at their organizations, making the decisions they think are best. And right now, I think a lot of leaders don't feel psychologically safe to make those decisions. And they're not wrong. I don't think they're wrong. I think that there is a huge perception risk of using AI at nonprofits. I think boards are feeling it. So, um, yes, task force is probably the answer. This is one of the reasons that I've started doing an AI enablement cohort, is to help task forces actually work through the core questions they need in order to upskill and upgrade their tech. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to go. And this is what a lot of other organizations are doing as well. All right, great. Thanks so much, Karen. Really appreciate your always showing up and love the question there. All right, next question from Megan Walsh here. Oh, this is a great one. Okay, I'm going to drop this in. Here we go. All right. So Megan's question. Megan's question is, I love this idea of AI enablement for orgs instead of AI empowerment. For me, not because I don't want to use AI and all its dynamic potential, but in basic terms of how much I can actually manage solo. Okay. Oh, wait, that's not the question. Sorry, that's your comment. I love that comment. Okay, so your question, your question here is, how can a small nonprofit write a great AI policy that our org can use to guide how we use AI? I have no idea where to begin except to prompt AI, write an AI policy for my small nonprofit. That is the right instinct, right? That is a great instinct. I think that that's exactly a way to start thinking about this. Is I've got a question about AI, so I'm going to ask AI. That's perfect. So the next question, or the next part of your question here, is how do you write that great AI policy? You copy it from someone that's already written a great one. That's the best way to do an AI policy. So I have been working with multiple organizations as we've gone through this AI policy. The best one that I've seen, and I'll say this, if you're in a nonprofit with 50 staff or more, you should probably bring in an expert to help you write that. Afua Bruce is like the person that is the best at AI policy at large scale. I think if you're in an organization over 50, call up Afua, grab some time with her and really work it out, because it's different stakes. It really is. If you're at a small or nonprofit, especially if you've got 20 staff or less, then the policies that you need are really different. And what I'd say is that in the work that I've been doing around this, what I found is that there's a couple of different layers of artifacts inside that policy for AI governance that you need. And they all kind of fall under the umbrella of AI governance. The first one is just your AI policy. That's what your board will approve. The second layer is your procedures. I did not know about this until recently, just because I'm not in policy. I haven't really thought about this. It's just not my world. But there's a difference between your AI policy, your AI procedures. And your procedures are the things that staff can choose. Your policies are the things that usually have to go through a more rigorous approval process to get adopted in, usually approved by the board. So, and then the layer below that is guidelines. And the guidelines are the things that you need to supply staff with that they can easily remember. So I've worked with organizations to separate those out, and to really focus on guidelines. There are 4 of them. I always forget one of them, but there are 4 guidelines that I recommend around this. And there are things like you're accountable for your work. So instead of focusing on transparency, where you have to say if you've used an AI for anything, focus on overall accountability. If you like use a spreadsheet, you're accountable for that work. If you use an AI, you're accountable for that work. If you use a word processor, you're accountable for that work. So instead of thinking of AI as some mysterious new thing, think of AI as all of the other digital tools that you're using. You're responsible. If you generate something, you don't read it, it's got hallucinations in it, which, by the way, hallucinations have gone down a lot, but it still does happen. It's their job to read that, know that, and to vet that, right? So that's the first thing. That's one of the guidelines. I'm not going to go through all of them. They kind of roll up. They're kind of similar to that. The last thing I'll say on policy here, well, I've got 2 things. One is there's a lot of confusion about the difference between cybersecurity, data privacy, and your AI governance. And those are 3 separate things. And what I've seen happen is that AI governance is riddled with AI with cybersecurity issues, trying to de-risk cybersecurity and data privacy, and they do relate to that, like all tools relate to that, but those are separate things. So I usually try and help people going through my cohort to separate out the difference between your AI governance, your cybersecurity, and your data privacy. The second thing I was going to say on that is that meeting note takers are their own category. They're the hardest thing to solve around all of this AI stuff. When you get down to the heart of where the rubber hits the road, a lot of times organizations are really getting stuck on what to do with meeting transcripts and notes that are coming out of meetings. So I'm not going to dive into that too much, but to say one of the practical things that your policy is going to need, or your procedures are going to need to handle, is what happens with those. And then last, I'm working with Jennifer Owens out of the One Valley Community Foundation, who has written the most comprehensive policy for small organizations. Her team has less than 10 people. It is a work of art. In the next month, I expect to have that up so that people can grab that and use it as a guide, so that they don't have to go and write them. This has been one of the most interesting parts of my AI work over the last 5 months, has been to see how policy affects all of these decisions. So, Megan, thanks for that question. Really great, thoughts on that. Marty, thanks for asking this. Okay, so this is a great add-on to this. Is we need policy for different positions, direct support versus fundraising, for example. Okay, so great thought on that. I think when it comes to AI governance, roles really do matter. And and Nathan Chappelle just said this on the fundraising AI quarterly advisory call the other day. And it's just so true. AI is going to win or lose at the department level, right? And so I don't know exactly how you do this, but part of the permission needs to recognize that AI is a team sport, and that teams need the freedom to use AI the way that's most beneficial for them. And they need the freedom to figure out what that is. And I think it goes back to the question of, do leaders feel psychologically safe to allow AI? And then layers underneath that is, do they feel psychologically safe to allow departments to figure out what that's going to look like? So Marty, completely agree to that. One of the ways I've thought about AI and the difference between AI and other tech is that other tech is kind of like just a truck, right? You just drive it, you're in the front of it, it's got an engine, you got to load all the data in the back of your CRM, you got to drive it all over. That's kind of the model. That's what it's been. All the driving happens up front in the driver's seat with the steering wheel. AI is more like a pod racer or a chariot. I like pod racers, but it's the same thing. You've got the powers coming from in front, and then you've got a driver sitting in the back, and with a basket. And I think leaders are used to being in the front seat of decisions around tech and trying to steer where it's going, and they kind of needed to with the way that traditional tech has been. With AI, one of the most important things is to get teams out there, give them the roadmap so that they know where to experiment. And then you have to direct from the back if you're a leader. You need to give permission and let departments engine their own futures on that, if that makes sense. So I love that observation. Thanks so much for adding that in, Marty. And thanks for joining. It's great to see you here. Okay, I think that there might have been another question in here that I missed. So let me just check this out. Nonprofit Hive, thank you. AI takes time to learn how to use, and man, nonprofits barely give their staff the time to breathe, nonetheless, to learn new tech. That's a great observation. Really agree with that. Sorry, I should have thrown that up here. Let me find it and throw that up so you can see that. All right. All right, just checking out if there are other questions in here. I think that I've got did I miss any, those of you that are watching, did I miss any of the questions in the comments? I'm just like trying to go through these really quickly. And if not, I'm going to hop to a couple of the other questions that I've prepared on here. So yeah, Marty, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm going to hop back in and I'm going to answer a few of these other questions. Feel free to ask in the background. So these are questions that people have asked me here and there as I've been doing more of this work. And so I thought I'd just come in and answer some of these questions here. So what's the one AI myth nonprofits need to bury today? Okay, man, there's a couple of these. Dan, I would love your thoughts on this. I feel like you think about this all the time. Same with anyone else. So throw in your ideas on this because there's a few that I think are important. One of them is hallucinations. When AI first came out, which was not that long ago, as ChatGPT, it was hallucinating quite a bit. Like it really was. The iterations since then have really reduced that, but because a lot of people tried it out, in the first 6 months, they got pretty freaked out by the hallucinations, which is understandable, and they haven't recalibrated their expectations. So I would say one AI myth that nonprofits need to bury today is that it's rife with a lot of hallucinations. It hallucinates about the same amount as humans do. So I think that that's one way to think of it, because we put false information out in the world pretty frequently as humans. So I think that's one. The other one is I think that again, this comes as a reaction to some of the earliest forms of this in ChatGPT, is that the rumor got out, or the way that people talked about training data, or the data that your data is being used to train models, the way that kind of got pushed out to the general public was this idea that if you put anything in an LLM, then it's live on the internet someplace and people can find it. And this has really spooked out leaders, right? It's really spooked leaders into feeling like it's not safe to put anything into AI. And because there's this, maybe it will happen, it's just better to lean to make sure that doesn't happen. I think is one thing that that has been a myth that has extended. The other piece of it is that I think what we didn't also say when we were talking about the training data is, A, you can turn that off, but B, you have to pay for it, or you're training the data. Like, your data is either your payment or you're paying for it, so you don't have to share your data. So I think, and it's not sharing your data, it's your data is being used to train a model. And as someone who has been working recently at trying to get AI agents to shape correctly, I'm seeing how important training models is. And there is actually a collective good around training models. I'm not saying that your donor data should be training models, but I think I think there's a case to be made for how that's actually part of what it makes AI so valuable. So anyway, that's more than one myth on it, but that's at least one. Okay, next question here. Maybe if I only have 30 minutes a week, where does AI give me the biggest win? Okay, great question. 30 minutes a week. I want to think about this for a second. If I had 30 minutes a week, I think the thing that I would do with AI is I would put my calendar. I'd take a screenshot of my calendar. I would put it in there, or I'd copy the calendar in, like, how you can turn it into agenda mode. I would throw it into an LLM and I would ask it, look at my week and tell me what I should be prepared for, what who I'm going to meet with, what things I need to have prepared for them, recommend where I should create spaces for myself, either before or after meetings. And I would use it to help buy more time. So that is the first thing I would do. The way I would do that, Dan is exactly on it, is to use deep research for that, because that's an easy way for it to just go in, dive into that, and start to look at it. So deep research. If you have not seen Dan Kershaw's list of the ideas he's put out on how to use deep research, that is really, really helpful. So if I wanted to make it contextually for me, I would probably have it look at my week. If I was trying to create content that I would be using in my work, I would do exactly what Dan is talking about. I'd find my role, I would ask it some questions, and then every week I'd put a new deep research into it. And yeah, the one thing I want to say on this also is the most important thing you could do with 30 minutes a week with AI is explore what you're curious about. I don't care what that is. If that's your work, if that's something else, that's fine. Try new things with AI is probably the most valuable part. Okay. The list for Dan Kershaw, that's a great question. Last week's show, you can find it in our channel, our YouTube playlist. And it's the deep research question with Dan Kershaw. It's the episode, I think it's episode 9 or 8. I can't remember. Anyway, hop in there. And at about the 20 to 35 minute mark, Dan shows some of what he was doing. So great question there, Megan. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Oh, perfect. Dan's got the link. Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Okay. Next question up. How do I stop chat? How do I stop? I can't read now. How do I stop staff from shadow using Chat GPT without permission? Okay. This is a power dynamic question, right? There's no way to really think about this question without getting into power dynamics. And I think that's actually really important. When it comes to enabling organizations, we're talking about permission, we're talking about power. So I want to just address this from 3 different levels. One is your coworkers are using ChatGPT and they're not using it in a safe way, right? How do you stop staff from using from shadow using ChatGPT without permission. I think that you have a low amount of ability to stop them. You could tell them why not. You could engage why they're using it. You could make sure that they're turning off sharing the data. At least make sure that they're paying for something and that they've turned off training the data. So I think that's the first question. The second one is, if you are a manager of your team and they're using ChatGPT, they don't have permission to, your organization said no using ChatGPT or whatever. You hold them accountable to not using it. Like, you have to follow those rules basically. And the way, I don't know how you stop them from doing it. I think you could get really into the weeds on finding ways to identify if their work is using GPT or not. I think that it's up to you to figure out how far to push that. Obviously, the other layer is, if you're the leader who has the ability to give permission, then what I would do is I would give them an alternative to ChatGPT that is within what you're comfortable with them using and within your guidelines. I mean, again, either Copilot or Gemini. And I would start there, find out what they're doing, see if they can use these tools for that. And if not, then I would look at what they're doing. And instead of focusing on stopping them, I would focus on giving them permission to do what they're doing. Because if people are shadow using ChatGPT, it's because they're saving time. I don't know that it's going to play well for you to not help them save time. If you don't have the ability to, that's a different question. If you have the power to create that permission, I would use your power to create that permission. So I am very curious if anybody else has an answer to that. I think that's a tough one. I cannot believe it's already 1:45. I have so many more questions that I want to get to, but I think we're going to call it there. If you really like this kind of if you like this kind of questioning and you want to spend more of your time asking questions and learning more about AI, then I'm going to show you a quick video about the Upskillerator. I'll tell you a little bit about it. We'd love to have you join. Also, every Wednesday at this time, and anytime on our YouTube channel, you can come back and look at the conversations that we're having around using AI as teams in your nonprofit and beyond. All right, this thing, every single time we think that it's going to work and then it doesn't. Hold on one second. I'm going to go play. I've got it someplace else. Is this it? Right here. Okay.
This is Steve. Learning AI on his own has made him unhappy. He joined the Upskillerator, a badass AI crew that upskills on AI together. Now Steve is happy. If you're tired of lone wolfing AI, click the thingy and join the baddest AI gang on the AI way. And when I say baddest, I actually mean goodest. Because for reasons that make no sense, the best way to say goodest is baddest. Anyways, you should join the Upskillerator by the human stack.
Okay, so the Upskillerator is our is my community, that not my community, is the community where me and others that are upskilling on AI can hang out, ask questions. I do lead some content on what we're learning right now. We're going through AI automations. But more than anything, it's a place to come share your wins, talk about what you're doing, share your questions, and if almost just keep the questions for yourself coming. So we'd love to have you join. If you're curious about what it's like, hit me up. I'll have a quick conversation with you. We really want this to add a lot of value to anybody that's in it. So if that feels like something you'd like to do, hop in. We'd love to have you join. So thank you so much. This has been great. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate people hopping in, and we'll see you next week.